Hi, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Lauren Rubin. I am the owner of Creative Canine Solutions, and I am a certified professional dog trainer and a Karen Pryor Academy certified training partner. That's a fancy way of saying that I know a lot about dogs and dog training, and I have letters after my name, which feels really cool. I'm also the proud owner of one dog and one very, very weird cat.
Aren't they all weird?
Yes.
My name is Monika of Eugene Dog Services. I offer professional dog walking, pet drop-in visits, and boarding. I am also a volunteer at Green Hill Humane Society for the past 3 years doing dog enrichment, and I volunteer with a plethora of other wonderful rescues throughout the United States. And while I am not a dog trainer, the reason why Lauren and I have gotten along so swimmingly is because we both have very similar beliefs in the dog training world, which is force-free, positive reinforcement. So we're very happy to have gotten to meet each other in this city so we can do webinars like this and provide you guys hopefully helpful information. And when we did a very short poll in our Facebook group for this event, it seemed like most people wanted to know about off-leash and on-leash introductions versus introducing perhaps a new dog you've adopted or a new foster dog into your home. So I think we're going to focus on that today. But if you guys have any questions, always pop a comment in that chat section. We'll try to get to it today. If we don't, we're always open to doing more webinars, or you can reach out to us on our Facebook pages. Lauren has a wonderful website with a few different resources too, so make sure you check that out. Yeah, I think that is it.
Yeah, and we were originally going to try and keep this to a half hour today, but our last webinar went to 45 minutes, and we have probably even more to say about dog intros. So if you need to pop out after half an hour and we go over, like, don't feel bad about it. We are hopefully recording this correctly, so we can share that information with you guys via a recording later. Fingers crossed it's working the way that it's supposed to.
I agree. And before we dive in, there's just a few reminders that we wanted to say. For example, just like humans, every dog is different, and you should never feel pressured when you're doing dog introductions to have your dog be okay with an introduction. If he's not or if she's not, you know what? That's okay. Don't force it. And also, if you do, in my opinion, if you just got a new dog and you're trying to introduce your dog to another, try to choose a more mellow dog who's not going to be super jumpy and very in your face, as I like to call, because if that's your dog's first interaction with another dog, it might honestly scare them for a long time. So just kind of be wary of what dog you're introducing to your dog if it is one of the first times you're doing so. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Lauren?
No, that sounds great. I think my rule of thumb with every dog intro ever is go slow. And if for any reason you or your dog seem uncomfortable, we don't have to be best friends with everybody we meet. My own dog is very selective. She has a handful of friends that she really loves. And that's fine with us. Like, we don't have to say hi to everyone that we see. She prefers not to. Honestly, I'm also an introvert when I'm not doing dog training, so I prefer not to say hi to everybody too. Seems super reasonable. So
Yeah.
don't ever feel pressured. Your dog doesn't have to love everyone they meet. Totally fine.
And we will be talking a lot about body language. You'll notice that a lot of this webinar is trying to figure out, honestly, what your dog is telling you before, during, and after the meet and greet. And we'll be adding some files to the chat. So if you guys see that pop on, feel free to click on it so you can kind of go along with us and see what a play bow is or what a lip curl is. So if you're not familiar with those terms and what that means, you can see the visual and kind of understand what we're saying.
And I also will try to enact it via facial expression because I've been told I'm quite good at that. And I have a little demo dog.
Oh, cute. I love it.
Yes, so he'll help us along the way.
Love it.
All right, so let's get started with all the fun stuff. So first things first, I generally prefer to start with on-leash meetings. And that sounds really weird. It needs to be done a very specific way in order for it to be safe. But I like to start with on-leash greetings because if something doesn't go right, you have the option to move both dogs away without putting your arms or legs or other body parts in between them. Because the worst thing that you can possibly do when two dogs start going at each other is put yourself in the middle, because that's how you get bit. And priority number one is for you to be okay so that you can make sure your dog is okay. So in worst comes to worst, keep that in mind. So let's talk about what to look for to know that your dog actually wants to meet another dog. So if you think about the way humans meet each other, like if I see Monika in real life, I'm going to walk directly at her. I'm going to look her in the eye. And if it weren't a pandemic, I would probably reach towards her and shake her hand. Knowing me, I'd probably give her a hug. That's how humans greet. If you see two dogs greet that way, it's inappropriate greeting behavior for them. So dogs don't like coming head on at each other. You may have heard that like staring in a dog's eyes is a threat. It can be for dogs who don't know each other very well. So if you have two dogs on leash and they're pulling at each other and they go head on to each other, that's a good way to start a scuffle, or at least stress them both out to the point where they're not enjoying themselves. So dogs, when they want to say hi to each other, and if you go to the dog park and watch appropriate, well-socialized dogs greeting, what you'll notice is that instead of coming straight at each other, they tend to do what we call a rainbow arc, and they circle each other, and they may stay fairly far apart for a little bit, circle around, and then you'll get the loopy butt sniffing where they're like, butts. That's the doggy version of a polite handshake. So they check each other out, make sure they're both interested, and then come at each other so that they can sniff their rear ends instead of getting up in each other's faces. Now, the hard part is when you do that on leash, you're attached to the other end of it. So you can help your dog initially by going in an arc around dogs. And this works for everything from friendly dogs to reactive to neutral dogs. If you go in an arc, it's going to feel more natural to them, and you can help by leading them that way. So go in an arc around another dog and then watch what your dog does and watch the other dog. So dogs offer a lot of different behavior as a way to communicate. You all probably know they have body language as opposed to verbal language most of the time. Dogs communicate really clearly via body language if we know what to look for. Signs that your dog is interested. Ooh, Monika shared a file in the chat. Everybody check it out. Actually, can you share it on your screen?
You know, it says the share screen is turned off.
Okay.
So if you're able to, I can pull it up.
I'm trying to figure out if I make you the host, will that? All right, guys, hang on, guys. Let's we're gonna play with technology.
Ooh, it does say I am now the host.
Sweet. Okay, let's see if that fixed it.
Oh, you are so smart.
All right. So, oh my God, tickle the pit bull. Okay, so
I had to.
It's so good. So this is a really good example of what canine body language looks from different angles, different behaviors, different methods of communicating. So if you are walking your dog in an arc around another dog, one of the things you should be looking for is that relaxed body language. So that dog who's standing the second in, his ears are up, but they're sort of neutral off to the side. They're not like perked really far forward. You've got a relaxed, soft body. There's not a lot of tension in the face. You're not seeing a lot of rigid muscles. The tail is either relaxed and down or it's neutral to the spine. And if you were walking this dog past another dog, they might be looking at it. They might wag their tail side to side in nice loopy arcs. If you have a really enthusiastic dog, you'll get what we call helicopter tail, which is where it starts spinning in circles. So when you see things like that and your dog is looking at the other dog, they seem loose and happy, their tail's wagging a lot, that would be a good sign that your dog is probably interested in checking them out. But it's not just about your own dog, right? Like we need to look at what the other dog is doing. So if you're seeing the same body language from the other dog, great. That's probably a dog that we want to introduce to. Now, if you're just walking down the street and you're noticing this, always ask, can my dog say hi to your dog? Because that's not always the case. But when you see this, then you can start the relaxed arc towards each other. So one dog's going to go one half of the circle, you're going to go the other half, and let them approach at their own relaxed pace. When they get together, the most important thing you can do is keep your leash slack. And this involves a dance that involves like trading leashes, going over, going under. But that nice relaxed leash is going to communicate to your dog, I'm calm and you have options. So I'm sure all of you have probably heard that you go into fight or flight. So with dogs, we talk about they go into fight, flight, freeze, or fidget. And when we keep the leash loose and relaxed, we give our dog the option to flee, which is always the preferable response to a threat. If your leash is tight, your dog does not have an option to escape, which means that their option is to freeze, fight, or fidget. 90% of dogs are going to fight if the leash goes tight and they're scared, because fidgeting and freezing isn't going to keep you safe in that moment, right? So keep a nice loose leash so your dog knows that they have options. Keep an eye on their body language. Do they remain relaxed? Do they remain happy? Do they look okay? In which case, then we can go ahead, if you're in a safe enclosed area, as long as they stay relaxed. What we're looking for is that ready to play posture. We call that a play bow. And you can tell it's a play bow because when they bend forward with their butt in the air, their elbows are going to hit the ground, assuming you have a dog who is comfortable doing that. Like Great Danes don't always go all the way down to the ground because that's a lot of body to put down. But what we're looking for is that elbows all the way down and that remaining relaxed posture. When you see that kind of play bow, that's a communication to the other dog. I want to play with you. What we are about to do may look a lot like fighting, but I mean it as play. Because when dogs play and dogs fight, it can look very similar. So this is how a dog says, hey, I'm not here for trouble. I'm just here for a good time. So when you get both dogs play bowing, at that point, if you're in a safe enclosed area, you can drop the leashes. I like to let them drag for a little bit just in case they change their minds or anything changes. That way you can separate them and then just keep an eye on play from there. If at any point you see any of the second row or the bottom row on this picture, either from your own dog or from another dog, that's a really good sign that it's not going to be a good fit. So generally what we're looking for is like anxious and stressed. So excess panting with the tongue hanging out beyond panting like I'm just hot and tired. Ears pinned back, big eyes with the whites showing. That's called whale eye. All of those are signs of nervous behavior. It can also be a lot more subtle. You might get a dog who spends an awful lot of time sniffing and not looking at the other dog. That's called avoidant behavior. And if your dog is doing that and they're going in the arc and they're sniffing the ground really intensely and basically pretending the other dog isn't there, they're trying to communicate, please leave me alone, I'm not a threat, and they don't want to do this. So if you see that, or if the other dog is doing that, don't introduce the dogs because they're trying to very politely say, I don't want to be part of this. And we always want to go and respect the dog's behavior and do what they want. So other things to look for, bottom row, if your dog or the other dog looks like this, the wary, unsure, suspicious dog, you can see weights rolled forward, ears are upright, and tail is high and up. That's a posture that says, if you come over here, it's not going to end well for you. And we don't want to introduce our own dog if they're doing that, because that means our dog is going to be pushy and scary. If the other dog is doing that, it means that dog is probably going to be pushy and scary. Some dogs will do that when they're excited, whether or not they mean it as a threat, but it also means they're going to come in really, really hot and really intense. And that can be a lot for other dogs. So if you see that behavior, just very politely, like, let's not do this today. Let's not do this right now. And we'll talk later about some other techniques that if you do need to introduce two dogs who are kind of behaving that way, there are some ways you can help diffuse the tension. And we'll talk about that a little later.
What if you have, this is kind of going off of what you said, we'll talk about later, but what if you have a dog who just keeps pulling? What I usually do with Jordy is our dog, for example, because as you can imagine, as a dog walker and someone who boards other dogs, my priority is to not only have my dog's safety in mind, but the client's dog or dogs as well. And when we do meet and greets, our Jordy loves to do the stalking and kind of like alert. So what we oftentimes do is we'll walk towards the client, but if he's showing those behaviors, turn around, let him kind of relax, and then try again. Mm-hmm. Would you recommend doing that for clients who have a very similar dog who's just kind of like, dog? Which is pretty much Jordy.
Yeah, that's like 90%, I think, of bully breeds. I see it a lot with like Huskies and German Shepherds too. You know, the intense like working dog breeds. They're like, oh, friend, and then they cannot help themselves.
Yep.
But it's still really scary for the other dog to have this dog barreling at them, unless it's another pit bull who's probably doing the same thing. They're like, yeah, let's do it. So if that's happening, I think turning around, walking away, and trying again is awesome. You basically just want to diffuse the tension until the dog can approach politely. If it happens repeatedly, one of the other things I like to do is a parallel walk. So you start across the street from each other at whatever distance you need to be, facing the same direction, that the dogs can focus on their handlers instead of each other, and then start treating them for loose leash walking with you. And then as they continue to relax, you're going to see that body posture go from like, oh my God, a friend, to like, okay, I'm getting cookies, I'm doing my loose leash walking. Once you see that body posture continue to relax, then you're going to be starting to step in and bring them closer and closer together until they're walking side by side. And you'll only move closer if both dogs are still relaxed. If they get too excited, move back apart again. Basically just get them used to seeing each other before you let them greet, so they're not so wound up.
So Zoe did ask, is stalking ever playful or always a bad sign? So Zoe, if that did not answer your question, let us know. We'll try to dive a little bit deeper into that, but hopefully I kind of answered that.
And stalking can be playful depending on the breed of dog. So every dog plays differently depending on what their breed is. So bully breeds tend to be big wrestlers, and they come in really hot generally. Huskies, very similar. German Shepherds, also pretty similar. If you ever watch labs, they tend to be focused on toys, and they don't do as much like body smashing. Now, this is a gross generalization. This is not always true of every individual, right? Just because we're a specific breed doesn't mean that we don't also behave other ways. But different breeds play different ways. And for some dogs, stalking is a play behavior. That's something that you'll get to know as you know your own dog. That being said, if your dog is meeting a new dog and they are a play stalker, I probably would still prevent the stalking behavior because the other dog may not know it's playful. I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So all behavior can technically be play behavior if it's offered in a playful manner. And the way to know, and this like flows us perfectly into like our next topic, how do you know if both dogs are enjoying it? How do you know if it actually is play? Because some dogs can be very, very vocal players. My brother has 2 Huskies, and when they play, if you were standing outside the house, it kind of sounds like there's a murder happening. Whereas
so
like
Jordy gargoyle like growls when he plays. It's so ridiculous.
Yes. Fen is a dead quiet player until she's playing chase, which she loves to play. But when she plays chase, she starts going, "Urgh, urgh." And when you see a big black pit bull chasing a dog going, "Urgh, urgh," it looks mortifying.
Terrifying, yeah.
Yes. But it's play. And the way that you can tell is, do the dogs take breaks? Do you get those play bows intermittently? So usually when dogs who are well socialized and are joining the process, when they do something like they clash really, really hard, or they've chased really hard, they will stop and offer a play bow. Okay, I know it looks like we were fighting, but we're still cool, right? Or if Fen, like when she chases the dog, when the other dog stops, she'll go over and start licking their chin and lips. That's a submissive behavior that also says, okay, you know that was cool, right? We were just having a good time. So you're looking for lots of pauses, lots of play bows. It feels really backwards, but an ideal play session would be like 30 seconds to a minute of intense play. And then anywhere between a minute to 5 minutes of just hanging out, sniffing around, and then back to a really intense play for a little bit, and then hanging out, sniffing around. So you're looking for those frequent breaks, lots of play bows, and you're also looking to make sure that both dogs are taking turns. So if you have a wrestle clashy type dog, if your dog spends all the time on top and one of the other dogs is on the bottom, it's no longer even play, at which point we're probably stressing both dogs out. So what you're looking for is if one gets on top, then does the other one get on top? If one's on the bottom, then does the other one get on the bottom, and that they're trading. It doesn't have to be perfectly even, but we want to see less pinning and more flip-flopping, if that makes sense.
And if you notice that one dog starts to get tired and not want to play, it really is your role as the parent to step in and say, okay, clearly this dog has had enough, by either calling your own dog over and offering it a treat or whatever it may be, just to break those dogs up. Because, you know, even our Jordy, sometimes he like gets it when another dog tells him something, and other times he's just so focused on wanting to play or whatever they're doing that it just kind of goes out the window, that doggy communication. So just really watch your dog and the other dog to see if there's any lip curling, if their hackles are up, or even watch their tail. If their tail is all of a sudden super straight and not happy wagging, and even the wag, whether it's to the left, to the right, nice big tail wag, that could all mean different things. So just get to know your dog, most importantly. And also, if you are having a play friend to come over, if it's for the first time, I recommend, just like I do with my boarding clients, I usually have the resident dog stay outside while I let the client's pup come in, kind of give a sniff around the house. And our dog is not territorial or aggressive in any way, or I can probably leave his toys out and he would not care, but I don't. I put all of Jordy's toys away so that it's truly a neutral space. And if you are doing a meet and greet, I highly recommend you do it outside of your home, just in a space that both dogs feel it's neutral, so that they don't get territorial, even if you don't feel your dog is. We always do meet and greets in a neutral space. It's just the safest thing to do.
Yeah. And along those lines too, when you do bring them back to the house, or I do the same thing, I'll put my own dog away, let the new dog sniff around the house, get used to smells, and then I'll switch them. So now my dog comes out, the other dog goes away. My dog gets to smell all the smells that the other dog has now left. And then we'll do the OnLeash intro and bring them together. And while you're doing that, you can be in the room with your own dog or outside with your own dog, rewarding them for hearing the other dog, smelling the other dog, and already starting it off on a positive experience. And once they've played too, keep in mind that even if they're playing really well initially with toys and things like that, although I always recommend putting them up, if you do bring a toy out, keep an eye on the behavior, because as they get tired, they may get cranky. And that's a gross anthropomorphization, but it's what looks like is happening. So dogs play and then they get tired and then they start to protect their toys or their people or their space. Just a sign that they're getting cranky and it's time for a break. There's nothing wrong with that. Resource guarding is a normal behavior as long as it's not overly scary, because these are my things. Same with toddlers, right? If you see kids playing together, they get tired and then they start like snapping at each other.
Yeah.
Same with dogs. So that's a good time. End the play date before that happens. When you notice they're both getting tired, this was so fun. Thanks for coming over. Have a great day. Goodbye. And on a positive note.
Yeah.
So Christine asked a good question. What's a good way to find a similar minded playmate? Monika, how do you look around and see what dogs might be a good fit for Jordy?
I have to say most of Jordy's friends that we've made in Eugene have been friends' dogs. So I've gotten to know the dog before I ever introduced my own. Even when I do meet and greets for clients, I try to get as much information about the dog before we ever meet in person, because just getting to know the dog's personality, you may figure out then if he's going to be a good match or not. And I know with my dog, he's 85 pounds, and I've always been so worried about how he will react or interact with smaller animals. Like I used to have a ferret, and when we brought Jordy home, I was literally terrified. Not because I thought he was going to eat him because he's a pit bull. He's a huge dog with huge paws, and I was like, oh my God, what if he accidentally steps on him? And what it was funny was Jordy backed off and the ferret was like, oh, come here, I want to play with you and sniff you. So I think a lot of times, as dog parents of big dogs, we tend to be like, okay, he's big, I don't want anything to happen. So I would just look for a playmate that fits personality wise, even if they're not necessarily the same size. But I do try to find dogs similar in size, because my pup is a body slammer and he likes to bite necks. So I just kind of try to find dogs who like the same play style. I think it's all about play style.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I would say that if you have, if you have a large breed dog who doesn't know how to play with other large dogs, starting with a parallel walk and getting them just used to seeing each other is probably a great place to start once you do find that dog. And I'm the same way. If we have friends who have dogs and they're like, oh, let's get our dogs together, I'm like, I need to see your dog by themselves. I want to see your dog looking at other dogs. I am probably a little intense about it. But I'm very protective because my dog is so dog selective. She has been attacked by dogs in the past. It's really important to me she only have positive experiences as much as we can. So I pre-screen everybody to the point where it's like, if she were my teenage daughter, this would be me on the porch with a shotgun. But that way I ensure she's always having a good time. And if I'm ever not sure how it's going to go, we'll start with a parallel walk.
What about with, for Christine, would it be maybe also a useful tool to teach her dog some recalls? So if she does pounce and it's not a play style that she wanted, to kind of get her dog to come back and off that dog and then try again?
Yeah, you could. We would teach a break. Take a break first, which is a cue that you teach your dog. Sorry, it's like, ooh, look, more questions. Yeah, so I like teaching take a break for that. So you can teach your dog when you hear this cue, like take a break, it means too much. Come back over here and get your cookie. So if your dog gets excited, play bows, and then smashes the other dog on the ground like WWE, take a break. Come back. I have a really good friend who has a beautiful Gigantor Rottweiler. Like he's 110 pounds. And he, as soon as he sees a dog, he's like, WrestleMania, and just goes in so hard. And she has taught the most beautiful take a break cue. As soon as she says break, he like pops off that dog, runs over and sits in front of her, which gives the other dog a chance to come sniff, make sure we feel safe and okay. So it's easy to teach that cue. At least this is how I teach it. Take a delicious treat that your dog almost never gets. Like if you're a meat eater, I'm talking like leftover, steak, leftover eggs, something really mind-blowing. When your dog is doing something, say, take a break, and then stuff it in their face. And I do that probably 10 times a day for like a week. And then I wait and see if my dog is in the yard, like sniffing at the neighbor's chickens, and I yell, take a break. Will she come rocketing back like that means steak, hamburger, or whatever? Then you can start using it when your dog meets other dogs, because your dog's brain is going to go, holy crap, that's the cue that means so much goodness is coming. And they should whip around and turn back. So that's also a good idea. I hope that helps, Christine. Also, if you are stuck, not to plug my own services, but always feel free to hire a dog trainer if you're unsure. Like, there are a lot of amazing positive reinforcement trainers in town. I'm part of a really cool cohort of amazing people. You really can't go wrong picking any of the R+ trainers. So if you need help, if you feel like, is what I'm looking at okay? How do I handle this? Like, that's what trainers are here to help with. So feel free to reach out to anybody who's positive reinforcement in town. We can all help you out if you get stuck. Okay, we got 4 questions, so bear with us, guys. We're going to go down the list here. Sasha asked, can you elaborate on introducing a big dog to a friend's small puppy? Yeah, so Sasha knows this because I work for her at Green Hill, but I'm also the shelter trainer at Green Hill, and I have a coworker who frequently fosters puppies for us. And I usually will bring my dog over, who's a 7-year-old, 60-pound pit bull, to meet the puppies so that they get a positive first experience. And especially with smaller dogs who are more nervous, I will put my dog in a settle, which is like a relaxed down, and I will treat her while the puppy investigates her. And they can sniff her all over. She'll stay looking at me. I'm just going to reward her for soft, gentle behavior. If the puppy starts to play, then I will let my dog get out of the down. If she gets too rough, take a break. I'll come back and settle her. We'll reward her and the puppy for appropriate behavior. So as long as your dog is comfortable within a relaxed down stay and you can keep rewarding and they don't seem stressed by having puppy check them out, absolutely. It's a nice, safe way for smaller breed dogs to check everybody out. Hope that answers that. Okay, Julia says, I have a 3-month-old cattle dog. That is the next breed of dog I want. He approaches everyone on the street. When people say it's okay, he kind of mobs over, very submissive, looks more like the body language in the second row, but he is the one pulling towards the other dogs. Yeah, so this is a really good question. Dogs can have conflicted emotions the same way humans can. And I always get this when people invite me over to dinner parties. I'm like, I'm really excited to go. And then the night comes and I'm like, I don't want to do things. but I'm like excited to be there, but I don't want to get out of my pajamas. Same for dogs. So especially with young dogs, they may initially be like, oh boy, a friend, and then get over there and be like, you're bigger than you looked from far away, or you smell weird, or I regret everything. That can totally happen, especially with young puppies. It's not unusual for them to run up and then immediately flop over like, please don't eat me. What I would say is if your dog is pulling really hard towards the other dogs and they're immediately going to run over and then be like, that's really intense behavior, normal for puppies, but for an adult dog, that's what we call obnoxious submission, and it can be annoying. So I would do the same thing you would with an adult dog. I would reward your puppy for looking at the dog. If they seem calm and relaxed, then we can walk over and say hi. If your puppy is pulling really hard, I would back off, reward for calm behavior, try again. Because we want to reinforce being excited to meet other dogs. But if we treat our puppy, whatever your puppy learns when they're young, that's what they're going to learn to do as an adult. And do you want your fully blown adult dog mobbing to get over at other dogs? That's not ideal. So you're going to get that same behavior because they're going to think that's how I greet dogs. So I would just reward, move away, reward, move away. And if you find that they can't handle that, like if they're still barking and lunging to get at the dog, even though you're trying to offer treats, we're probably not going to get to say hi to that dog. We may be too close. It may be too intense. So we may need to back off, reward where we can get calm behavior, and then go from there. If it's too hard to do that or it seems really intense, I would definitely recommend hiring a trainer at that point, especially because at 3 months old, you are at the perfect age to intervene where you're going to get a lot of really good behavior. So now is the right time to do that. Not to say you can't help older dogs, but they're young. Now is a good time to teach appropriate behavior.
And cattle dogs, especially, in my opinion, are very unique dogs in the sense that they're very intense, and not in a bad way. They're just a lot different than other dogs. Because we have one dog who's a cattle dog, and she's very reactive. She's very like hypersensitive to everything going on. Like she'll see something in a tree and thinks it's a squirrel, even though it's like a leaf. So I feel like they're wonderful dogs, but cattle dogs do take a little bit of special, just more attention when it comes to training them.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, if it's, again, it goes back to like different breeds play differently. I mean, cattle dog, it's in the name. They're bred to herd cattle. And when you weigh between 30 and 40 pounds and you are herding an animal that weighs upwards of several hundred of pounds, being hyper alert and aware of everything is super duper important. But it can also lead to some like neurotic looking behavior. Yeah, very excited about everything is the cattle dog descriptor for sure. But the good news is you're smart. Like you're on the ball at a young age. Now is the time to intervene and teach those correct, beautiful behaviors. It's hard when they're little to hold them back too, because they look so cute and they're so excited. But we really want to focus on reinforcing like polite, correct behavior early on.
And I cannot stress enough the importance of you staying calm during those situations too, because if you both get over there and your dog's acting crazy and you start to get stressed out and you're pulling on the dog's leash, I mean, that can also be sending so many different emotions or mixed signals that your dog is just not comprehending and he's just not understanding what you ultimately want from him or her. So just kind of keep that in mind too.
Yeah, definitely. And I always remember we were talking about, you want to keep that nice loose leash, right? If your dog is yanking to get over, we have a tight leash, which induces some stress. Even if it's excited stress, still stressful, still getting that increased heart rate. It's still a lot of pressure on the body. So dial it back. If we can't approach calmly, we just don't get to say hi, and that's okay. There are other great ways that we can meet other dogs in an environment where we don't have to yoink our way to get over to them. So especially with a 3-month-old puppy, now's the time to do like Sasha asked, bring an adult dog over that you know really well, who's really mild-mannered and well-behaved, have puppy play with that dog. Start doing it that way rather than trying to let us drag to meet everyone on the street. And it's hard. When my dog was little, I got her at 6 weeks old from Green Hill, and she would see people on the street. She was like, dogs are fine, but have you met human beings? And I didn't want her to learn to pull and jump on people. So when people were like, oh my gosh, can I pet your adorable puppy? I'd say yes, but she needs to remain calm in order to do it. And that was really, hard. There was the people who were really helpful waited upwards of 5 minutes for her to remain relaxed enough that she could say hi to them. And I had several people be like, this is dumb, I'm not waiting. And I was like, that's fine. You don't have to pet my dog. So it was well worth making sure that we did it correctly because her level of enthusiasm was so much. um, Hey, we know a mellow, mild-mannered pit bull, Jordy. Yeah, it's hard if you can't. Yeah, same with them. Yeah, it's hard if you don't know a lot of people who have mild-mannered dogs. Hiring a dog trainer is a great word, but absolutely, like find doggy Facebook groups. There are definitely dog-themed meetups. Obviously
I know there's a regular like husky meetup at Amazon Dog Park in Eugene. I don't know how often, if not every day. So you'd be surprised by just searching on Facebook, something like dog groups in whatever city you're in. You'll find so many people, especially now with dogs who are going nuts and need some and crave doggy play. You'll find a lot of friends out there who, if you're comfortable, obviously meeting with others, it's not always. If you're like Lauren and I, and we are more dog people than human people, then that might be a little hard. But
yeah. And if you do go that route, find someone who's willing to let you meet their dog ahead of time, so you can observe their dog to make sure that they are mellow. But yeah, even if you don't know people who have mellow dogs, hire a dog trainer. We can come out and work with you on leash when you see dogs in the street to help you get what you need. So there's lots of options. Definitely don't feel like you're alone. And I'm sure everyone on here who at one point had a puppy can tell you that they had a very similar problem.
Yeah,
it's absolutely super normal. Don't feel bad or don't worry about it. So one of the other things that's really important to think about, and we've touched on this a little bit, and I know that Monika mentioned, like if you are stressed, you will stress your dog out. They're really good at reading our body language and feeling what we feel. So try not to micromanage your dog when they are finally doing a meeting. We want to walk a fine line between intervening when they need help, but also giving them a little wiggle room to figure it out on their own. And it's hard because you'll often hear, I don't frequent dog parks anymore. I used to, and I often heard when two dogs were fighting, like, oh, just let them work it out. We don't want to do that. Because a lot of the times dogs, by the time they've gotten into a scuffle and are actively trying to fight, they're probably not going to work it out until someone gets hurt. So we don't want to let our dogs do that, especially because at dog parks, we don't know how well socialized the other dogs are. So I would always intervene if you feel like your dog is starting to get in a tense situation. Take a break, call them back, and leave the park, or try to defer them to a different dog. So don't let your dog, quote unquote, work it out if things are getting ugly, but do let your dog play. If you've dropped leashes in your own backyard with another dog and your dog is playing and you feel like they're starting to make some weird noises, watch their body language. Are you getting nice loose body? Are you seeing lots of play vows? Are they taking turns? If the answer is no to any of those questions, then it's time for a break. But don't try like following your dog hyper closely. No helicopter puppy parenting. You just want to observe and then intervene if you feel like things are getting a little tense.
And never, ever, please do dog introductions on a retractable leash. If you're a client of mine, you know how I feel about retractable leashes, but I have seen people introduce dogs on retractable leashes. And I mean, my heart was just like, oh my God, something gonna happen. That's just a nightmare waiting to happen.
Retractable leashes always put tension on dogs. Like they're always taut. So there's no way to do it loosely. And those things are like razor wire.
Yeah. I mean, they can tangle up, and then if trying to untangle leashes like that, once the dogs are especially very stressed out, it's not fun.
Yeah. There's probably only one situation which I would potentially say that a retractable leash would be appropriate, and it would be on an empty beach or in a big open field with no one else around, and you want to give your dog sniffy room. But I still prefer what's called a long line for that, which is just a long leash rather than a retractable, because the retractables just have so many potential issues. And
I usually avoid dog parks too for a meet and greets. I think a lot of times people think a dog park is a good idea because it's fenced in, other dogs are there, so why not? But for all those reasons, because there are a lot of distractions, because we don't know the other dogs, and we don't know the other dog parents who are there and whether they're not whether or not they are paying attention to their own dogs, I just try to find a very quiet area. I'm lucky enough to live in South Eugene, where I have Frank Kinney Park. I meet there with my clients, and we do everything that Lauren has said. So, like, very quickly sum up, when we first get there, we don't do nose to nose. We always try to have the client's dog walk either before or behind us or in front of us, just to kind of let the dogs get to know each other, their smells, let a butt sniff here, let a butt sniff there. And once we notice that the body language is great, happy tails, we do let them walk side by side. And eventually, if everything is okay, there is a fenced in area where we go to. And as Lauren said, keep the leashes on, but what we do is just kind of walk, nonchalantly drop the leashes, let the dogs go, let them play. But always after about 30 seconds to a minute, we kind of try to get them back in and then let them go again, just because we don't want that first interaction to be too intense so that we lose control of the situation.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to do it. And I agree. I think at this point, dog parks are tricky because you don't know what other people's dogs are going to be like. And a lot of well-meaning individuals will bring their under-socialized dog to the dog park thinking that it's a place for their dog to learn how to behave like a dog. And unfortunately, that's not generally what happens. It would be like, I'm deathly afraid of spiders. I can't. And if you took me to a park full of spiders, I would probably have a full-blown meltdown. Same with dogs who are under-socialized. They're not sure how to handle other dogs, and then you've dropped them in a park full of other dogs. That's stressful. So if you have a well-socialized dog and you know that your local dog park is filled with well-socialized dogs, and you can find that out by watching them play before you bring your own dog in, then awesome. Go ahead and use the park. If you seem like things are starting to get intense, leave. But I monitor things ahead of time. If I'm ever going to use the dog park, I stand outside the dog park without my dog and watch play. What does it look like? If there's more than 10 dogs, that's too many dogs. Amazon Dog Park looks really fun, but it always stresses me out because there's always upwards of 50 dogs there. That's a lot. That's a lot of dogs. So keep an eye out. And so if you guys don't know who Lily Chin is, she draws these cartoons about dog body language. They're amazing. I definitely have a blanket with dog body language on it from her. But her stuff's amazing. So this is a perfect example of, if you need to leave the dog park, and there's no shame in leaving, but if your dog is scared, you got that tucked tail, pinned back ears, there's that avoidant looking away, cowering, leave. Yep. We don't want to let him work it out, right? Because it's too scary. So it's not a good fit for this dog. We're just going to take off. Do you have the pushy one too, Monika? By any chance? If you don't, no worries. There's another one too that talks about how to know if your dog is the pushy dog. Because our own dogs may be not the aggressive dogs in this case, but what we might deem the aggressor, where they come in really hot, they're too intense with other dogs. We should also leave the park in that case, and that's okay. It may depend on the day. There have been days where you may go to the park and your dog does great and has a wonderful time, and there may be other days where your dog is pushy or your dog is scared just because of the mix of dogs that are there. Don't feel bad about that. It's okay to leave the park if it's not a good fit. At this point, we don't dog park anymore. If we have friends who have dogs that we want to hang out with, we have them come over to our place. Just too many variables.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Lauren. Sorry, I'm trying to do a few things at once.
No, you're good.
It looks like I'm looking off into space. I'm not. I think a lot of people, just like me, used to think that all dogs are super social and they want to have a million friends. But now, as more research is coming out about dog behavior, isn't it true that dogs are kind of the opposite, where they tend to like smaller play groups versus like big play groups?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's actually a really interesting article I was reading a couple weeks ago about how dogs generally prefer one-on-one play as opposed to large group play, which as an adult now, I understand how that feels.
Yep.
And I think it also depends on the dog's age, right? Like when you have a puppy, they do want to meet everybody generally, not all puppies, but a lot of puppies do want to meet everybody. They want to be friends with everybody, but it's really normal for our dogs to get selective as they get older, the same way that we are. So yeah, your dog may be picky. I have definitely met dogs who specifically don't want to hang out with like black dogs. I've met dogs who are like big dogs who do way better with medium and small dogs. My dog's best friend is a beautiful doodle. You just don't know until you get to know your dog better what they're gonna enjoy. So it's totally fine to let your dog say, I don't want to hang out with that dog. I think we have this unfair expectation that our dog has to love everybody they meet. But I don't expect myself to feel that way. So why would I put that pressure on my dog? Yeah.
Exactly. I wasn't able to find a good full-size image of that is your dog pushy, but if anyone is interested, I will, after this, post on our Facebook group once I find a better quality size of that.
Perfect. And we will be emailing the recording for this out either today or tomorrow as well. And I will include it in the email too.
Perfect.
Yay. All right.
Does anyone else have any other questions, since we have not been cut off by Zoom, since Lauren has upgraded us today, so we weren't going to have to push you guys onto another Zoom URL. And I guess before we wrap up, I do want to say, as a professional dog walker, I want to tell you that just because someone is on Rover, just because someone is on WAG, it does not mean that they are professionals and that they know what they are doing, unfortunately. I've had to do a lot of meet and greets when we were going on a 2-week vacation, when we needed our dog watched, and it honestly blew my mind when we were doing meet and greets how the other person was like, oh yeah, this is great, like both dogs love each other, and I was like, oh my gosh, no they don't, like they're not a good mix. So just always learn your dog, and when you're doing meet and greets, whether it's with your boyfriend's dog or a potential dog walker or even dog trainer, unfortunately dog trainers are not all certified like Lauren, and a lot of them will call themselves dog trainers and dog behaviorists, and I've met some who are wonderful people who love dogs, but they unfortunately don't know body language or canine body language and what to look for. So just really do your due diligence when you are hiring any kind of professional in this field.
Could not have put that better. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, not only do dog walkers, like anyone can say they're a dog walker, but anyone can also say they're a dog trainer. It is an unregulated industry and you are not required to have a certification. That being said, you can also technically hire anyone as an auto mechanic, right? But it doesn't mean that it's a great idea. So make sure that you are doing your due diligence. When you're looking at a dog trainer or a dog walker's website and they have pictures of their clients' dogs, did the dogs look relaxed and happy? Can you find video of them training or of them working with the client's dogs and the dog looks relaxed and happy? Or if they don't look relaxed and happy, is the trainer or the dog walker pointing out, these are the signs, this is why we're working on this. So do your due diligence as much as possible. Do hire a certified dog trainer. CPDT is the certification for professional dog trainers. And then KPA CTP is a Karen Pryor Academy certified training partner. I'm not just plugging those because I have them. But they are very rigorous, intense programs that require time and study and effort and test passing. So you are more likely to be getting a good trainer if you are looking for a trainer who is certified. Since there's only one place I know that certifies dog walkers, and I don't think I've ever met anyone who's done it, it's harder to know with a dog walker. So Monika's right. Do your due diligence. Look at pictures, look at videos, ask them questions. Exactly. If my dog gets into a scuffle with another dog, how are you going to handle that? If my dog is barking and lunging on a walk, how are you going to handle that? And their answer is going to dictate where you're at.
And ask them their experience, ask them like, how many dogs have you watched? Or have you volunteered at any places? Because that will be a huge thing. As if, even at Green Hill Humane Society, they give us as in volunteers so many wonderful resources. So if you're meeting someone who wants to walk your dog and they're a dog enrichment volunteer at Green Hill, that's usually a good sign. And I would definitely talk to them and consider them.
Yeah. And if they volunteer at a different rescue, look into that rescue. What methods do they use? Because not everyone uses positive reinforcement. Green Hill does exclusively, and I know because I'm their trainer. So if you do become a Green Hill volunteer, you get to learn from me, which is really exciting. But yeah, look into the rescue they volunteer for. Do they use positive reinforcement? How do they handle it when these things happen?
We do have a question from Lindsay, which is, I have a friend whose child is training a service dog. It is really important that his dog and my dogs get along in order for him to come over. Is it appropriate to hire a trainer to assist specifically with a few meetings?
I would certainly say so, especially because with a service dog, with all dogs, it's important they get socialized correctly. With a service dog in training, it's extra important because we want to make sure that that dog can move to a higher capacity than we expect of most companion dogs, right? Like a service dog will require public access, will need to be able to learn how to ignore other dogs regardless of their behavior, but also be friendly and appropriate when appropriate. So if your friend is already training a service dog, they may already be working with a dog trainer, in which case I would just set up to have a session with that trainer. If they are not working with a trainer, hiring someone that you know really well to come over and supervise the first couple meetings, never a bad idea. The worst thing that happens is that you get the dog trainer out there and they're like, this actually looks really good, and you can rest easy. Exactly. So I always think it's a good idea.
And, dog trainers have the eye to look for the subtle cues that we wouldn't necessarily pick up, because dogs tell us so much with their mouth and their butts and everything. There's just subtle cues that you maybe wouldn't notice that they would. So I totally agree with Lauren.
Yeah, it can be really, I'll give you a quick example. I also am responsible for introducing dogs at the shelter to see how they behave with other dogs, and was working with a dog who had really mixed body language, and I couldn't quite figure out how they were feeling, but they kept offering what looked like play bows, but then they would get really intense. So I filmed it and I slowed it down. And what I discovered is the dog was doing what's called a prey bow instead of a play bow, which is what dogs who are hunting dogs will do before they chase something. And you can tell the difference because there's like a 3-inch gap between their elbows and the ground. Because a play bow, they hit the ground all the way with their elbows, and a prey bow, it goes up. So dogs are that subtle and that fast. Okay, well, I know it's like we're wrapping up, but real quick, nerdy side note. So your eyes basically have a refresh rate like a computer, and that dictates how quickly you observe things. Dogs' refresh rate is faster than ours. So they see things at a faster rate than we do. So by the time you've waved your hand, your dog is already aware that it's finished its arc. So dogs can see body language really, really quickly, which is why they throw it out really fast. So sometimes it can be hard for us to tell unless we know exactly what we're looking for. So having a dog trainer who can help you observe, who can record things and slow it down and be like, look, this is what we're looking at, can totally be helpful. Also, it's just super nerdy and interesting.
Yeah, I've never heard that. So you definitely just taught me something new. I've never heard of a prey bow. That's really cool.
Someday when we're allowed to get together in real life again, I'll bring my I have a thick body language Bible.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
All right. Thanks so much for coming, everybody. It was great having you. If you have any other questions, please feel free to post in our Facebook group. I'll send out an email with the recording. Ashley, thanks for coming. I'll see you tomorrow with Zeus. Julia, good luck with your cattle dog. Feel free to post on the group. Let us know how you guys are doing and enjoy this not rainy day.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. We'll see you at our next webinar when we choose a topic.
I know, we can hardly wait.
Bye, guys. Enjoy this Memorial Day weekend. Oh, hi, Jordy.
Oh, hi, Jordy.
You can see his nose.